Hey everyone, this is Nick, and I hope you're not getting tired of all the exciting stuff happening in Linux and open source land, because there is more. There is always more. This week we have the GNOME developers trying to adapt GNOME Shell to a smartphone and tablet form factor. And no, that's not Phosh, that's a separate project which is not GNOME Shell. This is the real deal. We also have Deepin 20.6 releasing, with huge improvements to the desktop environment and the default apps. And we have Timeshift being taken over by the Linux Mint team. But there's also some new info about Elementary OS 7 Horus. There are some new Nvidia Drivers releasing, and there are some new plugins for the Steam Deck, among a lot of other things. So let's get started. Just like it's super easy to get started with your own Linux or gaming server thanks to today's sponsor and the $100 free credit they're gonna give you. Thanks to Linode for sponsoring this video. Linode is the best choice to deploy your own Linux or gaming server. Getting started is extremely easy thanks to their app marketplace. You can just pick from one of the many apps they offer, select a few configuration options, and just one-click deploy that server. It's super simple. It works for a development environment, but also for a Minecraft or Valheim server. Among the most notable apps, Linode has Moodle to create your own learning management system and teach and sell courses in minutes, but they also have stuff like Pi-hole to block ads. Even though Linus said it's piracy. From Focalboard, a Trello alternative, to Rocket Chat, which is the equivalent to Slack or Teams, Linode has everything you would want. Click the link in the description to get your $100 credits and get started. The Google Summer of Code has started, and GNOME has grabbed two interesting projects to improve their applications. The first one is to revamp the new document creation feature of Nautilus, the file manager. This feature has been a bit neglected and suffered some regressions with the GTK4 port, so Ignacy Kuczynski, sorry if I'm butchering the name, a Polish student, is going to work on improving it by exposing an entire tree of all available document templates instead of using some nested submenus. They're going to use icons to be more legible, they're going to show the new document menu even if the templates folder is empty, so users can add new templates, they're going to let users search the templates list and quickly rename the newly created files. The second project is to improve GNOME Health, a little-known app used to track your fitness, activities, and weight. The goal is to let the app sync with Google Fit to automatically pull steps and weights, and also, if time allows, to work on a Pine Time companion app as well. Other projects of Google Summer of Code will help improve Chromecast support, PTV, the video editor, Fractal, the Matrix client, and the various GNOME websites. These are all cool projects, although I'm more interested in the revamp of the new document menu from Nautilus, because that thing has been bothering me since the GNOME 2 era. GNOME developers are looking into the mobile form factor and are starting to think about porting GNOME Shell to smartphones. Yeah, I know, Phosh exists, but it's an entirely new shell developed for the Librem 5, and it's not GNOME Shell itself, so I guess we can always use another variant. A lot of the various pieces already exist in GNOME Shell, with a customizable app grid and one-to-one gestures for moving around workspaces or opening the overview and app grid. The project is actually funded by a grant of the German Ministry of Education, and that should be enough to get a first version out, even though it won't be daily drivable just yet. The goal is to enable shell navigation, launching apps, search, and using an on-screen keyboard, and all the other basics. For this, they will need a new gesture API, a way to detect the screen size, adding a separate panel layout for mobile, making every app a full-screen workspace so you can switch from one to the other easily, and a portrait mode on-screen keyboard, as well as quick settings. They already have some concepts of what that might look like and how it might work, even though it's all experimental stuff for now. Now, all these efforts will also make GNOME Shell a first-class citizen on tablets, which is good for me because I have a JinkPad which has been abandoned by the original developers and it's just sitting there collecting dust, so I would love to be using GNOME Shell on that thing. We have even more GNOME updates, with the GTK4 port of Nautilus being much improved for mouse users, and the middle mouse button can now be used to open multiple selected files all at once. Workbench, the sandbox to learn how to use GNOME technologies, now supports previewing templates and can convert files between XML and Blueprint. Further ends, the time tracker can now autosave, and tasks can be added manually. Overall, the music player received a refresh of its icon and styling tweaks to look even better. Finally, the Blur My Shell extension that lets you get Compiz-like effects on GNOME got 2 new effects to close or open your windows, and a lot of internal preferences have been tweaked, which might result in your preferences being lost, unfortunately. There are also a ton of new translations for Blur My Shell. Smaller updates this week, but it's still kinda cool to see the GTK4 port of Nautilus advancing along, because it's kind of annoying to use the GTK3 version on GNOME 42 because it doesn't look like any of your other libadwaita apps. Now, we're done with GNOME for this video, but KDE developers also have some stuff to share this week. The team has reduced the number of bugs in the future Plasma 5.25 to 15 issues, so the release is definitely on track for next week. The number of 15-minute bugs actually increased, with 3 added and 2 resolved, notably a fix for KWin crashing when plugging in an HDMI monitor. Ocular can now change its color scheme independently of the system, so you can have it in dark mode when the rest of your desktop is light. ELISA lets you disable the automatic music scan, and all Plasma pop-ups are now resizable from their edges and corners, and will retain the size you selected. And there are a bunch of improvements to Dolphin, Spectacle, the screenshot utility, and to Discover, which specifically can now be closed while installing or updating, turning it into a system notification. A lot of these changes won't make it to 5.25 because it's almost out there, so they'll be pushed to 5.26. We also have some monthly updates to Elementary OS this week, clarifying the situation with Elementary OS 6.1 and what's left to do on OS 7 before it releases. Users that stick to 6.1 or wait for OS 7 can still look forward to some app updates, at least for those using Flatpak. For example, the default browser, GNOME Web, was updated recently to Web 42. And they will also get apps using GTK4 when they release. They won't be stuck on older GTK3 versions. The terminal got a small update as well with new keyboard shortcuts to switch between tabs, and the system settings can now manage CalDAV accounts offline. As per Elementary OS 7, codenamed Horus, it will get automatic app updates for Flatpak apps as an option. There won't be a warning dialog anymore when installing apps from FlatHub, and performance and navigation in the App Center will be much improved. The new music player will also be available in Horus, and multiple apps will receive icon updates and style updates with a new header-less design that merges the header bar with the content of the window. All apps will progressively migrate to that, but the first one that will use it is Mail. If you're using elementary tasks, you can already see an example of that design in action. Now, OS 7 will definitely not be a revolutionary update. It's going to be small touches here and there and moving to the newer base of Ubuntu 22.04. But since all the apps and the desktop will be updated as a rolling release, it will keep getting better and better over time. The release is currently planned for mid-June, but there are still some regressions with the window manager that needs to be fixed, so it might be pushed back. Deepin 20.6 has been released, and it brings with it a bunch of improvements and changes. Their App Store now allows filtering and categorizing of search results, separating Linux native programs, Windows programs, and Android apps. Because yeah, you can install all of these from the Deepin App Store if you use Deepin itself as a distro. You can also now choose the default search engine for your web browser at install. There's now support for logical volume management, or LVM, and you can now manually allocate the root partition size when installing. The system-wide search tool lets you locate and examine files that might have the same name but different path. The calendar now lets you add and manage custom event types. The Mail app lets you create email accounts and manage emails with Exchange, and the various default apps also received a bunch of improvements. Oh, and also they bumped the kernel version to 5.15, so the distro should now support a lot more hardware. Okay, no more procrastinating. This time it is noted in my calendar and planned task. Next month I'm taking a look at Deepin. Nvidia released a new version of their proprietary drivers, which begins the new 515 series. The one that also brought us the new open source modules, and it looks like Nvidia is investing a lot of time in their drivers now. Speaking of their open source module, they added a file in the source that shows which GPUs are compatible with them. The new driver now has support for more Vulkan extensions. It will limit problems with hibernation or suspend. The Nvidia X server settings app is now less dumb in terms of asking you to save your changes, even though you just did. There are game scope improvements for future SteamOS 3 support, and they fixed an issue where audio output wasn't working on HDMI with high refresh rates displays. The kernel module also got updated, and the source is still available. They apparently plan to release new source code with each new release of the proprietary driver. It's really good to see Nvidia finally starting to catch up to other manufacturers in terms of drivers on Linux. And while yes, the proprietary drivers are still needed, they might finally be really good now, since they are actually committing to them. /E/OS, or EOS, under the new umbrella name Morena, got its first stable 1.0 release. For those who never heard about it, it's a de-googled Android ROM that I already talked about in a video a while ago. The goal of the project is to provide as complete an Android experience as possible without any Google services. Version 1.0 brings a ton of improvements to the system, including App Lounge, their own app store that lets you access Android apps, including the complete Google Play Store. But that last part will require to log in with a Google account, which kinda defeats the purpose. There's an advanced privacy feature to let you know which trackers are running, and to be able to block them, or even to hide your IP address and set a specific location. And there's also an alias feature called Hide My Email. Morena also offers Morena Cloud, a replacement to Google services, with file storage, an email account, calendar, photos, tasks, and notes, based on Nextcloud and completely confidential. And they also even launched their own smartphone, the Morena One, which is a mid-range smartphone that will ship to the USA, Canada, Europe, the UK, and Switzerland. I personally used EOS for a long while, but I had to give it up because it didn't support SafetyNet or my banking app, which I really do need on my smartphone. But they did send me a Fairphone 4 running EOS 1.0 as a review unit, so I will definitely be making a video about it in the next few days. Subscribe if you want to see it. Clément Lefebvre, the lead developer for Linux Mint, posted an update on Mint's blog, and there are some interesting things happening there. First, Timeshift will be adopted by the Mint team as one of their X apps. The original developer and maintainer lacked time to keep working on it, so it's good to see someone picking up the project, as it's one of the best system backup tools on Linux. Mint will also move away from Blueberry, their front end for GNOME Bluetooth, since they would have to rewrite a large part of it to make it compatible with the more recent updates to the backend. They'll move to Blueman, which is a JDK front end for another Bluetooth stack instead. The user interface won't be as simple and accessible, but it also provides more features, and the developers of Blueman seem open to Mint's feedback, so it will only improve in the future. It's always really nice to see projects being passed on from a team to another instead of being left to slowly become obsolete. I can't wait to see what the Mint team will do with Timeshift. It's a great system backup tool. The Heroic Games launcher that lets you play your Epic Games and also your GOG games on Linux like you would with Steam and Proton has just received a new update. First, there's a no GUI parameter you can add to your shortcuts to launch your games without opening the Heroic launcher itself. Pretty handy to start your games on a Steam Deck, for example. The launcher will also look for Proton versions and various runtimes outside of its main library, so it should detect them on other drives or partitions. And there were a few fixes, mainly for Winetricks on the Flatpak version, for forced downloading and forced uploading of cloud saves, which didn't work properly and actually killed my Borderlands 3 saves a while ago, or for styling issues. It's still a crucial part of your gaming experience if you enjoy those free Epic games every month. Heroic is just a must-have. The Steam Deck has a new plugin available. Yes, if you didn't know, the Steam Deck's UI can be expanded upon with plugins, thanks to Plugin Loader. The new Quick Launch plugin allows you to list all your installed Flatpak apps and start them directly from the Steam Deck's UI, without having to add them manually as a non-Steam game. Other interesting plugins let you tweak more performance options, connect to paired Bluetooth devices, or display Spotify controls. And in other Steam Deck news, it has now passed 3,120 games in the verified programs. This includes 1,570 certified titles and 1,550 playable ones. That's still about 27 games validated per day. And newcomers include Strider, a reboot of the older Mega Drive Genesis title, Hitman Absolution, or Not a Hero. Very cool to see that the Steam Deck software can be expanded upon. I might look into these plugins and use some myself, and maybe I'll make a video about it. What I'll definitely conclude this video with is today's sponsor, Tuxedo. Tuxedo is based in Germany. They sell laptops and desktops running Linux out of the box. You can choose any distro when you configure your device, but you can also install any distro of your choosing, knowing full well that the whole device will be 100% Linux compatible, which is very, very cool. They have a huge range of devices, from the smallest NUCs and Ultrabooks to the higher-end gaming desktops or workstation laptops like the Stellaris 15 behind me, which I just received. It's a review unit. I'll make a video about it in about 2 weeks. And they also have interesting projects, like for example an external water cooling solution for the Stellaris 15, which you just plugging at the back and it's automatically going to water cool the dedicated Nvidia GPU in it, so you get the best performance possible. They also refreshed their Infinity Book S line with the 17-inch and soon the 15-inch getting new CPUs as well. So if you need a new device running Linux out of the box, or that you want to make sure that your new device is 100% compatible with Linux, check out the link in the description below, click it, and buy your new device from Tuxedo. So, thanks everyone for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't hesitate to like, to subscribe, to turn on notifications, to write a comment. And if you didn't like it, you can also dislike and tell me why in the comments as well. And if all your savings were not in cryptocurrencies, then you probably have some money left. And if you have too much of it, you can donate using the PayPal link in the description, the super thanks button at the bottom of this video, or by joining my Patreon subscribers or my YouTube members. Both get access to a weekly Patreon cast and the right to vote on the next topics I'll cover. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!